Welcome back to Forbidden Knowledge News. I'm your host, Chris Matthew. Tonight I want to welcome back to the show author, Planet X researcher, and publisher of YOWUSA.com, Marshall Masters. How are you tonight, Marshall?
Hey, I'm cooler than most of the country.
Yeah, it's hot. Definitely hot.
I mean, it's like everybody should be out frying eggs on the sidewalk. It's crazy. I mean, when I was a kid growing up in Phoenix, we actually used to do that in the summers when, oh my God, it would get over 100 degrees and we get like 105 and everybody's dying, with all that dry heat.
Yeah.
And go out as kids and we'd see how, literally you'd watch those eggs just right there. And we used to love to pour them right into the imprints from the WPA that made all the sidewalks, and then you'd lift that out as an omelet. That was pretty cool. It's not so much fun today for everybody.
No. And Marshall, it's been a little while since you've been on the program. Just give everybody a bit about what got you started doing this research, kind of what opened your eyes to, what's going on. I tell you what, when I first started researching Planet X, I was convinced that this is what's going on. As time progressed, I've explored different options. Planet X is still one of the main theories that I believe is a big possibility. But for me, what's lacking is visual photographic evidence. That's the main thing. The signs are there. The Earth changes are there. All the evidence is coming through, but we just don't have that photographic evidence. And that, for me, is it's a big part of it, along with we have other people coming up with all these other theories of what could be going on. So tell us about what started you on this research.
Okay. Well, before I get to that, let me talk to your photograph. And because probably I'm the best Planet X image analyst right now, because I've been doing it for so doggone long. I started back in 2013, where we were tracking what we called an object called Blue Bonnet from Turrialba volcano webcam. And we were so effective with that, the government intervened and shut us down. And but I appreciate, I have published countless videos and pictures and all kinds of stuff. And the problems with Planet X is the same thing, Chris, is with UFOs. Mountains and mountains of evidence, and people go, well, I don't know. All right, what do you do? Mountains and mountains of evidence. What do you know? Because, with UFOs, a lot of people just aren't going to believe it until an alien is eating their face off. And you got to have that up close and personal experience. And the same thing for Planet X. And I can tell you that, for me, there's an article, When Will I See Planet X? It's on my site, YOWUSA.com. I document our research and I say that if you haven't seen it by a certain time, not going to happen in your lifetime. And because people always ask me for a date. So I finally gave a date. However, in 2018, September 9th, to be specific, I saw it with my own eyes. All right. And I saw it with another observer, a professional woman, great gravitas, a contributor and helper with Yowza. And we both saw exactly the same thing. At the time we were around Warden, Washington, going past wheat fields. And we're just driving along, and I'm in the shotgun because I just love it when somebody else drives. That's it. I can just sit there and go, la, 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 la. And I'm doing my la, 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 la thing in the shotgun. And all of a sudden she's going, wah! I see it. I see it. She's totally going. And I'm like, hello, what's happening? And she sees a little road. She pulls off. And it was like right out of the movies, like we went around the circle on two wheels kind of a thing. And she comes to a grinding halt. And as she does, I look out the window to my right. And sure enough, I see it. But I'm looking through glass, and that'd be the first thing I'd say to somebody. Well, you're looking through glass, all right? Through windows in an aircraft, that's different. That's plexiglass, much better resolution, less distortion, much less than glass. So I'll work with that. But regular physical glass, no, that's a problem. And so I jumped out and I'm looking at it, and this was when the sun was literally just about to slip below the horizon. And this is about the only time you can actually make a naked eye observation of an object near the sun. That's the only time you can do it, naked eye. People are getting it at altitude. They can get it anytime during the day. Either that, or it's in the mornings or late afternoons, typically when people are picking it up with smartphones that have extended ranges for infrared and ultraviolet. But I saw it. I saw it at a position approximately between the 11:30 and 12 o'clock, very close. And the other person, a woman, she saw it. And the sun slipped before we could get out to a smartphone. The sun slipped. I mean, it was just very brief window. But also keep in mind, since 2013, I've been looking at so many Planet X pictures. I'd hate to think about it. So what do? I don't look at it and I go, oh, gee, what's that? And start talking. No, I understand because I research. Do nothing, think nothing, say nothing, absorb, absorb, absorb. It's like scanning, like the scanner. You flatbed scanner on our printers and they go wonk, 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 wonk. And then boom, you have a picture. I did the same thing. Wonk, 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 wonk. I scanned it. All the criteria, perfect object. And I said, but then, because I know she saw it, because she's telling me she saw it, but I want to test her because we didn't have enough time to get our smartphones out, take a picture, and I really wish I could have. So what I did was, I always like to throw qualifying questions at people. And instead of telling her where I saw it, I said, did you see it closer to the 1 o'clock or the 2 o'clock? So I asked her questions. And she said, no, it wasn't there. It was between the 11:30 and the 12 o'clock. That's where I saw it. Well, that's exactly where I saw it, and I didn't tell her. So we validated each other. Now, I've seen it. I didn't need to see it to believe it. As you'll read in the article, actually, there was evidence published by NASA that was the smoking gun, and that convinced us that it actually exists. And it was from the Ulysses probe, and it's in the article. And so the smoking gun's there. I started believing the science. But most people don't have a mind for science, and they don't have confidence in science. Because science really is political, especially these days. And I appreciate the fact that you're going, well, I haven't seen it, so I don't know. In other words, Chris, I'm sorry, but Planet X hasn't eaten your face off yet. Okay. Think about it. If it did 2 for 1, you'd believe in UFOs and Planet X at the same time.
Now, I'll tell you what.
You wouldn't have long to do.
That being said, that does not stop me from prepping for anything that could happen. I tell you what. So I will be prepared when it does come to bite my face off.
Oh, man.
Now,
my man, there you go.
Yeah, now before we get too far, I cover a lot of topics, and there's so much disinformation about what Planet X really is, if it's a rogue planet, if it's a comet, or if it's a little solar system. So based on your research, tell the people, what is Planet X?
It's a big, ugly frickin' rock, and it's coming for us. How's that?
In simple terms.
All right. Look, that's simple terms. Look, what we have is a mini constellation. It's a system within a system. And the diameter of the Nemesis system, probably overall in size, would be comparable to Jupiter. And Nemesis is going to be about, probably larger than Jupiter, maybe 2 or 3 times. But also keep in mind, there are people that feel Jupiter ought to be regarded as a sun because it actually generates more radiation than it receives from our sun. So therefore, it really does almost qualify as, a pseudo sun, if you want. But this is a brown dwarf. And a brown dwarf is, this is a kind of star that's very, very difficult for astronomers to find. Yet, there are many more brown dwarf stars out there in the galaxy than stars like we are in orbit around. These are very plentiful stars. And brown dwarfs have enough mass to ignite, and they'll fire off, create a protoplanetary disk, and then things can start to form up, and they'll create a cloud of debris and so forth. However, they don't have enough mass to keep
Got disconnected there for a second.
I can't. Okay. Yeah, it's
You're
the
back
funny
now.
thing is we had we had a big fire not far from the ranch where I'm at, and it took out a cell site, and so we've been having problems. It's for people that live in California right now, I can tell you it's not a good time. Particularly the folks that are in the fire-prone areas, because the insurance companies are bailing out left and right. And, what they do is they waiting for fire season to come in, and then they say, we're discontinuing you. You got 2 weeks to find someone else. And then the people are in they wind up getting really gorged on the prices for the insurance if they can find it, and they have to, otherwise their mortgages are going to be in trouble. But anyway, I digress. And I'm sorry, where was I when we went offline?
Well, you were kind of given an overview of what it was.
Nemesis, I'm sorry. Okay, and so the brown dwarf star is in a comet-like orbit, and this is the celestial mechanics are difficult for people to imagine. I can tell you that in the book Surviving the Planet X Tribulation that I wrote, I actually take the celestial mechanics and I break it out step by step through the whole flyby so that you can get an idea of the different things. And frankly, I haven't seen anything to change anything. I got it right on the money. Everything I'm seeing now is consistent with what I wrote about in Surviving the Planet X Tribulation. So if you want to know the celestial mechanics as it comes through. But you have this brown dwarf sun. It's very dark, shrouded in iron oxide dust. That's the reason why it's got the big red wings. And this thing is in a 3,600-year orbit around our sun, and it's going clockwise. We're going counterclockwise. It's going clockwise. And an interesting thing is its North Pole, like the North Pole of Uranus, is always pointed at the sun. And it has planets and moons in orbit around it. And what we're starting to see are actually the planets, not Nemesis itself. When we see Nemesis, we'll see Nemesis. Well, right now we're seeing its major bodies, which are going to be Helion, and on the inside, and then on the furthest one out is Nibiru, planet of crossing, and it has a moon which we named Farada for Carlos Muñoz Farada, who actually the astronomer who first predicted the existence of Planet X And I'm talking about Nibiru and Nemesis. He predicted it in 1940. And this is consistent with what was happening at the Lowell Observatory in Flagstaff, Arizona. Percival Lowell founded the observatory, and he was a wealthy Bostonian to do things his way. He founded it specifically to find what was called Neptune's perturber, because astronomers in Europe, ever since the discovery of Uranus, were looking for Neptune's perturber. And that's what this was called. The term Planet X was actually coined by the astronomer Percival Lowell. And that was about 1905. And the Lowell Observatory was looking for Planet X. And when they found Pluto in 1930, he thought he found what Percival Lowell had named Planet X, or what the European astronomers were calling Neptune's perturber. And so what does he mean by Planet X? Planet X simply means we know it exists by virtue of the way it interacts with objects we can observe. All right. Always remember this first rule of astronomy. This is the first rule of astronomy. I'm going to give it to you right now. The failure to observe an object proves only one thing. You have failed to observe the object. That's it. You want to make anything else out of it, you've left science at the doorstep. You're going off in wild eye. You're creating your own tinfoil hat. So this system is in a comet-like orbit, long, like a long slinky. You know, remember slinkies when we were kids? All right, it's a long orbit, and it takes 3,600 years. And when Nemesis is going through its orbit of 3,600 years, it's not evenly 3,600 years all the way around. It's going to be, once it's going south of right now it's coming up into the northern sky, it'll arch over the sun and go back down between Mars and Jupiter. And when that happens, particularly when it hits the ecliptic, we're just going to get tore up something fierce. Ed Dames talks about a solar sprite. And that is it's also called cosmic lightning. And so this is ground lightning coming from the sun all the way out. And I think excellent example of cosmic sprites in the past. I believe the Grand Canyon was made that way. I've been through the Grand Canyon, lived in Arizona. I never really bought the water argument, the water erosion argument. But set that aside. Val Marineris on Mars is even much bigger than that. Now, you going to tell me Val Marineris was made with water erosion? Please. Okay. So we have all kinds of historical evidence. There's all kinds of science about it. But Chris, if you ain't seen it, you ain't seen it.
Right.
And that's the truth.
Let's.
And I'm not gonna. I don't want to say anything negative about folks that can't buy in on the science like I did, because that would just be arrogant hubris on my part. Having seen it myself, and I can tell you, it's not one of the warm, glowing memories of my life. Seeing Planet X for the first time is as welcome an experience as a big bowl of itching powder in a hemorrhoid clinic. Okay? And I saw it and I just went, oh, damn. Well, I said some other things, but we're on an interview. But I was just, for a couple of days, I was so bummed out. I didn't want to talk, didn't do anything. I just,
well, I'm sure
Wow.
Once
It
people
just changed everything for me.
I'm sure once people actually do see it, they'd actually have a rude awakening like yourself, but on a much larger scale. But let's talk about the evidence here. Let's talk
excuse me,
about the
by the
things.
way,
What's that?
before we go into that, you know what the rude awakening is going to be?
What's that?
Looking at it, knowing you're not prepared for what you see. That'll be the rude awakening. That's
Definitely.
what's going to make people pee their pants, not what they're seeing. The fact that they never took the time to prepare. And now that's it. Fate is going to decide their outcome. Please, I'm sorry to interrupt.
Oh, no, that's no problem. And, July 4th and 5th, a magnitude 6.6. The very next day, a magnitude 7.1 in California. The past few days, we've had a flurry of smaller earthquakes in Seattle. Then they had one off the coast in the Cascadia subduction zone. Not to mention, we've got 78 volcanoes either erupting or on alert right now. I've seen our global climate go from bad to extremely worse in the matter of just a few years. So, the evidence is definitely here. So let's talk about that.
Oh, absolutely. I love the point you said. You're doing excellent research, Chris.
Thank you.
You said 78 volcanoes active. Now, let me put 78 active volcanoes in a perspective for you. I wrote my first Planet X article, I believe it was January 2002, published it. And January 2002, I can tell you, at that time, there was on average about 40 to 45 volcanoes erupting every year around the globe. Not all at once. You'd have 2, 3, 4 erupting. Some of them just go all the time. But you'd have major eruptions, 2 or 3 at a time. At most for the whole year, 40 or 45. You just said right now we have 78 volcanoes going off right now.
Either erupting or on a higher alert level.
That's right. And they're worried about Yellowstone. Frankly, I am more worried about Long Valley than I am Yellowstone.
The Yellowstone steamboat had another record. Besides the one last year, it's headed towards another one this year.
Exactly. But the one thing I see with Yellowstone, and I've been tracking Yellowstone since 2004 extensively, is that what I've seen over the years with Yellowstone is displacement. Magma is moving laterally. It's spreading out. And also, the last time Yellowstone blew, it knocked out its cap. And so it doesn't have the cap. So if Yellowstone erupts again, it'll be more probably like a series of Mount St. Helens. The one that will be really explosive is Long Valley. It's a single caldera, and it's not displacing. It's inflating. And it's constantly inflating. And why they keep the lid on it, they keep pointing everybody. I think if everyone in LA really understood what's happening and look at the quake swarms and see how close they are to Long Valley, you might have a little exodus going on. So that would be the reason why they don't want to talk about it. The weather is going, it's bazonkos, and on this one I can see why Trump is saying no, because otherwise you get into the carbon taxes and all of that stuff, and I think they just want to avoid the carbon taxes. Personally, there's no question in my mind Trump knows what's coming. There's no question in my mind. I'm going to tell you why. in the lead up to 2012, I did a lot of consulting with people who are, well, they're richer than 10 feet up a bull. They're out there, they're building bunkers. I'm talking about poor boy, like you're not going to have bragging rights at the golf club. All right. That's a $500,000. $500,000. They're mostly mil and above. And I mean, we are talking about downright comfortable surviving while everyone else is dying like lemmings. All right. And they were always asking, I was amazed with their research, with people would have money, you think they're acting irrationally and beating their checkbook on your head and stuff. No, very polite, very intelligent. I loved working with them. They appreciated the work that I do. They appreciated the consulting I did for them. They always came to me at the same time. They had already put money down on their property, and they did their due diligence with me on general location before they went to escrow. And that's when they would always call. So I would get a location within about 20 miles of wherever their bunker was. And then I could say, all right, based here in this area, geographically, here's, on a scale of 0 to 10, with 0 being stick your head between your legs, you're going to die badly. 10 being is as good as it gets, and there's no 10 in the United States. If you want a 10, go west of Calgary in the foothills. But anything over a 7 on my scale was survivable. Well, these folks were always between an 8.5 to a 9.5. I mean, wow, they were good. I'd sit there, do the whole analysis, and finally say, hey, it's an 8.5 or a 9, closed escrow, you got to win. And they thank you so much, and it was the end of the conversation. And I worked with a lot of those folks. Now, those people were just like you, Chris. They were just like you. You know how they were like you? They were saying, I don't see it yet, but I'm going to hedge my position and prepare. What they were doing was, see, people with money are looking to hedge their position. And so they're looking at risk thresholds, no differently than intelligence agencies, insurance companies, security companies. Anyone who deals with risk tells you, if you're waiting for a smoking gun, you'll find it next to your smoking body. You're always looking for thresholds. When does the intelligence become actionable? So someone like Trump with his own private security staff, which was quite impressive, but people of his wealth, of his ilk, they all know about it. They all know about it. Trust me. If you're up in the upper 2%, they're going to, it's all tinfoil. I wouldn't do a bunker. Da-da-da-da. They'll blow you off. They'll call you crazy. They're out there dropping $1 million bunkers in the ground. I know because I worked with them. I know because I work with the guys who build the bunkers and the off-grid power systems and the geothermal and the yada, yada. And I know because I worked with these people. So Trump knows. And that's the reason why I think we have a shot here with Trump, because the D class came out. Now, set all the political stuff aside. People don't understand that Trump is just a figurehead. What's happening right now is a military operation that was triggered by what happened in Libya, all right, Benghazi. And that was the final straw. And the military saw the deep state trying to destroy the nation. And so they went after it. And that's the thing. Now, the thing about the Patriots is that transparency is important. When Trump did the D class, he declassified everything and then said to Barr, you got the key to the candy shop. Go have fun. the point here is that if you go back in interviews I have been giving for the last 10 years, I've always said exactly the same thing. They're going to lie. CNN, and I was a former CNN science feature producer, to my eternal shame now. Oh, no, I was there when, when they were doing it right, when they were kicking butt and taking names, and they were a lean, mean news machine. So I'm not going to know. I'm going to say, yeah, those are the good days. When I look at CNN today, it's like watching Invasion of the Body Snatchers. They're always going crazy. But what they would do, because remember, they're globalists, they're deep state, they're with the central bank, they're controlled by them, is that we would see it in the sky, and what would they say? It's not going to hit the earth, so don't worry. And that's all people want to know about astronomy. Is it going to hit us? No. Hey, that's it. Astronomy 101 for the day. Class is out. Bye. Toodles, I'm happy. All right? They're not going to tell you about all the other damn miserable stuff it's going to do. And they're just going to say, well, we have a little bit of, whatever going on, and don't worry about it. The worst has already happened. And then what will happen is things will get worse. And when it gets to the point where people are going, we really didn't expect that, then someone like CNN and MSNBC are going to say, well, we've revised our models, and now they're more accurate, and we can assure you that we didn't foresee the severity of these current events, but this is as bad as it's going to get, and we'll weather it because we're blah, blah, blah. All right. And then after that, the dying starts. Well, that whole thing has changed now because Trump created a precedent. Disclosure is big. So if everybody's seeing it and Trump doesn't disclose, the patriots will just up and walk away from him en masse, and that's it. He'll be toast. Okay?
So do you think that they're making moves to disclose this sometime soon, or are we gonna just not hear anything until it's too late?
They're going to disclose as soon as they can without undermining their position. If Trump were to come out today and say, yes, UFOs and Planet X exists, all the Democrats are going to be going, yes, and he thinks an alien is eating his face off. He's crazy. Let's get rid of him. He's lost his noodles. He can't be president anymore, and that's it. They're going to get, so he can't do that. But on the other hand, all of a sudden, YouTube has a gazillion, what the hell is this, videos on it. People are talking. It's widespread knowledge. That's when we'll get the real deal. And I think more people are going to have a chance to survive under a Trump administration than the Democrats, because I know exactly what the Democrats were doing. And they were setting us up to fail big time. And also the Republicans. So
of course, yeah,
this was I don't even want to call it. It's from when you look at presidents, anyone after Reagan and anyone before Trump was deep state, globalist, central bank, okay? Republican, Democrat alike. They were all, that was it. They were in with the big elites, all right? And Trump's not. Trump's with the patriots. And so the point here is that we have a straight shooter who has a precedent of transparency and does disclosure and has a loyal base, and they're not going to tolerate being lied to. No way, no how. So for the first time since I've been writing about Planet X, and I started researching it in 2001. By 2005, I understood the deep state globalist plan, which very simply put is to take Russia and the United States as the two nuclear powers, destroy the countries, turn us into third world ghettos, turn everyone into third world ghettos, so the whole world is universally poor and they have the lives of gods. And that's what they're doing. And for them, Planet X, what do you know? What a gift that keeps on giving.
Convenient.
How convenient, because see, 7 billion people, oh my God, that's hard to manage. They don't need 7 billion people to live like gods. So what are they going to do? Let Planet X come through, and they're going to say, it's not us, it's that big ugly rock. And pow, 90% of the population is dead, even possibly more. At the lowest point of the flyby, humanity could be reduced to 250 million or less. And by the end of it, we'll probably be closer to about 500 million. Because we get down like that, we'll be procreating, no matter how tough it is. It's just built into our human key. Well, but still the same. They're going to do it. And then, pardon?
Oh, no, continue. What were you saying?
So, you know, what they were planning to do, what the deep state, the globalists were planning to do, is they've got deep underground military bases and bunkers all over the globe. They're all over the place. And I mean, they're like McDonald's, you know, there's globalists everywhere. And their plan is they were going to wait until the population was reduced to its lowest possible amount. And people are really, really, really struggling. And that's when they would come out and say, looky what we brung you. We have warehouses full of food and clothing and medicine and building materials and seeds and all kinds of wonderful stuff. All you have to do is take the chip and sign right here that says we're your God. And that's it. And they'll find enough people who are going to say, hey, you know, a deal's better than no deal because I'm starving to death. Maybe I can beat the devil later. Not that time. They'll sign thinking maybe they can weasel out. There will be no weasel out. And at that point, humanity will be condemned to permanent slavery for countless generations to come.
Oh, man.
And that is what was always in store for us that I saw. And now I don't see that. I have hope for the future. For the first time in all of these years, I have hope for the future. Because,
you know, I really hope you're right with that. Because I do see something different with Trump than I've seen with the presidents of the past. You know, I'm not going to say that I trust him completely, but there is a difference that makes me raise an eyebrow and have a glimmer of hope, you know?
Yeah. And you also have to remember with Trump is people just, they look at Trump and they're fixated because he's really the face of the patriot movement. They think if they take out Trump, that's the end of their problems. No. Someone else, the patriots will have someone else, Pence, pick up the colors, continue moving forward.
Now, when it comes
to someone else will step up. They'll do it. What I can tell you is anybody they put up will be able to withstand scrutiny. Look at Trump. They've taken his apart. They've taken his life apart like a cheap doll rag, and they can't find anything. And that's what the deep state, they're looking for, the blackmail stuff, whereas the patriots understand that. And so their figurehead, all right, is going to be clean as a whistle. Trump's clean as a whistle. I don't care about, they can make all the unsubstantiated allegations. It's what you can prove in court. They can't prove diddly. Okay, because there's nothing there in the first place other than their own anger. But
Now, getting back to, some of the changes that we're seeing now with the progression of events that I've noticed over the past, say, 5 years or so, it is a gradual progression. Is it going to continue to be a slower gradual progression, or will one day we'll just see this ramp up to like a 10, 20 times worse than we're seeing now?
We're at that point right now. Go to my website and look at Signs Article 39 and 40. We've done 40 Signs articles, and we published one a month for 40 months. Except now that there's so much happening that I had to put up 3 articles, I think, within 30 days of each other. First time. And we're seeing what I call crustal undulation. And the thing here is that, Chris, if you really want to find Planet X and what's happening to us vis-a-vis Planet X, don't look up. Look down and explain to me why over half of the coral in the world are dead. And that by 2030, only 5 to 10% of the coral will still be alive. All right. Explain why. It has nothing to do with water, with air temperature. All right. With all the heat waves and all of that. What it has to do with is heat coming up from underneath. Our lithosphere, our sun, is interacting with Nemesis, and it's becoming brighter. Consequently, the luminance is creating more photons of light, and they're carrying radiation. And this comes down, it strikes the ground, goes into the earth, and what we're having are uneven heating of the Earth's core, which incidentally, by the way, is what Edgar Cayce said would cause the pole shift. But you have all of this heat warming the Earth's core. And so crustal undulation is caused by this uneven heating that's causing all kinds of things to move unnaturally. So it's resulting in high levels, never before seen in all of recorded history, by the way. Last year, for fireballs and earthquakes, the largest year in recorded history. And this is empirical data. All right, data. So you have the undulation, and think of it, it's like you see the top of a Jell-O mold, how it wiggles. And that's just what crustal undulation. And so that's what's causing earth trumpets, sinkholes, land tears, volcanic eruptions, swarms, everything that we're seeing now with what's happening below our feet. Above our heads, we have more fireballs. We track fireballs, not meteors. Meteors are like little shooting stars. They're fun. All right. We're looking for the big, ugly smokers. They're going through a hole, man. Look at that, And then that's that, if it's a bolide, you're going to hear it when they blow up. And if it's a super bolide, you are going to have a shock wave that hits you, blow the glass into your face, and then you're sitting there all afternoon getting stitched up like it happened in Russia with Chelyabinsk. All right. And so all of this is on the uptick, and it is all this year. From 2018, it started picking up, and right now, I don't want to take a look at the numbers for July. I really don't, because it just, if you look at our Signs 39 article, I believe it's in there, and I show our earthquakes. We took last year, 2018, was this massive swarm of quakes, and just amazing, massive, like nothing we've ever seen before. And so it skewed all the numbers going back, all right, to the beginning of the data set. And so what we did was we took out the swarm, and then all of a sudden we could see a much more realistic statistical pattern forming. And it's really shocking. I mean, if they said, anybody that tells you the Mayan calendar thing was nonsense, just tell them double dumbass on you. Double dumbass on you. Because I'll tell you what, good prophecy starts with the harbinger. Doesn't start with the event. It starts with the harbinger. Something you can see to tell you you're on the timeline of the event. And for the ancients, it was a lunar cycle and celestial configurations. And that's what, in 2012, December 21, 2012, was a very specific celestial observation from a very specific place on the globe, which was found. And then after that, harbinger, then you're on the timeline. Well, guess what? When we started looking at all our evidence, empirical data, we're getting it from science sites, real science sites. This is real science. December 21, 2012. Going to 2013, boom, it took right off. I mean, just pow. You ever, Roadrunner and Coyote gets the Acme rocket and lights the fuse, and he goes up, and eventually the rocket putters out, and then, woo, thud. That's always great for a laugh. You can see 1,000 times, but it's always fun to see the Acme rocket run out of fuel. Well, this Acme rocket has been burning like crazy, and it ain't and it's not running out of fuel. It seems like it's going to the second stage. It seems like it's lighting up even more engines and finding more fuel. It's really getting much bigger. And so this is going to keep going. And even in our science articles, we raise a point, where's the breaking point? When's things really going to start going sideways? Well, we're in this time. Now, we're going to start seeing more and more of it.
Would you recommend that people start getting away from the West Coast right now, since we're seeing all this seismic activity occurring, especially Cascadia Subduction Zone, San Andreas Fault, all those major areas? Do you recommend that they get out of there?
If you're within, as a general rule of thumb, when I work with people on location consulting, I just tell them that there's no perfect place unless you've got $1 million or $2 million to drop in it. Okay. There's no perfect place. So everything is, more or less. But as a general rule of thumb, you want to be 150 miles away from a major body of water, an ocean or a Great Lake or a Gulf. And you want to have at least a couple of thousand feet of elevation. About 2,000 to 4,000 feet is ideal, because once you get above 4,000, and particularly you get into 5,000, that's high altitude farming, shorter seasons. And if you're city folk, you don't know how to do that. And that is, that's pretty tricky. I mean, there are people that can do high altitude farming. They're good at it, but they've been doing it for a long time, and they got a lot of knowledge. And if all you can do is, grow an avocado seed on a windowsill, don't get that high up. And the things that you want to look for in general, I like to look for tall trees. I like to see trees that are 200-300 feet tall, because I know the taproots are going deep. It means there's life way, way deep in the soil. And that's important, because we could have events that'll literally sterilize the first two feet of soil all across the earth. I mean, we're talking about defoliation on a horrific scale. So areas where you have deep life source, all right? A good example of that is like Minnesota. Minnesota is water and green. Water is life. You got to have water. So you want that soft earth, tall trees, rolling hills, and lots and lots and lots of water. All right. These are the things that you want to look for. And in terms of nuclear plants, you want to be beyond. You don't want to be within 100 miles downwind, and you don't want to be within 50 miles upwind of a nuclear facility of any kind. Because when the national power grid goes down, we're going to have Chernobyl events. We're going to have Fukushima, Chernobyl, whatever, all over. We're going to have these things cooking off. And they go, well, don't worry. Everybody thinks, well, they can scram the reactor. Yeah. Hey, cupcake, you got to cool the fuel. All right. Why do you think, Chile, over in Fukushima Daiichi, all 3 cores are in the earth. All 3 cores went China syndrome. All 3 cores have burned through the floor. They don't want to admit it, but the 3 cores are down there. And what's below the plant? An underground river that empties into the Pacific. And Fukushima is the nuclear volcano that is going to be erupting for years, countless years to come. It's going to kill the Pacific. It's going to kill the Pacific. All right. So we're going to have all these problems with radiation. There's going to be a lot of stuff that's, once it goes, Congress started the EMP Commission, electromagnetic pulse, because an EMP attack could wipe out the nation's power grid. If the nation's power grid fails, the EMP Commission has said how many people in America, how many Americans will die. You want to know what our own government said, that if the grid collapses, how many of us are going to die? 9 out of 10. Only 10% will survive. Only 10%. And the EMP Commission was it almost just disappeared off the face of the earth during the Obama administration, because Obama didn't like the message. It conflicted with his narrative. He didn't want doom and gloom. So he killed it, which was kind of a shame, because the EMP Commission said, for the price of the wall on the southern border, we could protect the nation's power grid and 9 out of 10 American lives. And it's not happening because the power industry doesn't want the government getting into their little bailiwick, but they don't want to do the EMP protection either. And so it is between politicians like Obama and the power people. We were completely buck naked and bare ass on EMP. Now, that a few months ago, thankfully changed. President Trump resurrected it. And he said, now we have to have a plan to implement EMP protection and do it for the country. It has to be done with a certain number of years. So we finally have a president that's going to protect us, protect 9 out of 10 of Americans. He doesn't get credit for it, but he's the only one doing it. That's one of the reasons why I just feel so, at least somebody's trying to keep us from dying like rats. And this is what, these are the things that are going to come. So, excuse me, if you're going to preparing is, let's go to Costco and buy the buckets. All right. So you go get buckets of dehydrated and freeze-dried stuff, and you take it home, and most of the calories are in flavored drinks and carbo snacks, very little protein, minimum protein. I'm talking about, maybe enough to keep someone in Somalia barely alive. All right. And that's what they're going to have in the bucket. People buy it and set it in the corner, and they go, oh, that's it. Solved the problem. I bought something. Now, you got to start learning things that are going to make you valuable. People will congregate into survival groups. There's going to be natural leaders. There's going to be people who are going to pull things together. And if you walk up to a group that's forming and you can say, look, here I have a pie tin, fill it with cooked beans, and I will amaze you at how fast I can consume those beans. Just fill the tin, please. And you're going to want to have me in your community. really? They're going to say, the FEMA camp's down the road. Like, you should be there yesterday. Hook 'em. Go kick your rock down the road. On the other hand, you walk in and you have information that makes you worth a mountain of beans. Worth a mountain of beans. That's different. Now, there's no brainers. Doctors, no brainer. Lawyers, no. You better come with truckloads of beans. But doctors, I mean, it's like, if I had to choose between a poor Mexican peasant farmer and a Harvard graduate, I'd tell the Harvard graduate, hey, I wish you all the best. Me and Pablo here, we're going to do it because Pablo understands. You got to work the land and work together and cover each other's ass. And all you're going to do is figure out ways to get me to do your job for you on top of mine. All right. So that's not going to be interesting.
Right.
Now, we wrote a book, Radio Free Earth. And this is the one thing, if there's one thing to do to prepare, that's really going to give you a huge advantage. That's going to make you as valuable to any survival community as a doctor or a dentist or a nurse is if you are a proficient ham radio operator. You know how to communicate near and far. And the reason why, people are so stupid about this. When things go sideways, who's going to have the very best two-way radios? The very worst people. And if all you got are red bandanas and signal flares, double dumbass on you. They'll take you anytime they want. And then you can sit there and listen to everybody being raped and murdered and butchered and say, on the two-way radios, we could have tracked it. We could have listened in on their intelligence. We could have had spotters. We really could have had some flex. No, I didn't want to do it. Bad call. Next time better, except no one's alive for the next time. So I have a site, radiofreeearth.org. And I put up over 100 minutes of free information to get people started, because I always have, he's just writing books to get rich. I'm giving you for free the information to start with nothing. And for a few $100s, you have some serious option. All right.
Yes, very good. That's excellent for people to have, like you said, they complain that you're writing books, but where would they be if they didn't have the information like this to go to? Marshall, we've got about 5 more minutes or so. Go ahead and tell us, what do you see? Do you see that we have at least maybe 5 years left to make some preparations, or do you see us, in the next 5 years that we're gonna, basically be in the midst of a major cataclysm?
Both. I think that this winter, we're already going to have food scarcity. There will be, people are going to be worried. They're going to start seeing high prices and empty spots on the shelves in all the stores because of all of this terrible weather we've been having this year with the floods. I mean, just Nebraska alone, 1 million calves? 1 million calves. My God, you got to stop and think about that. All right, that's a huge whack. And yeah, they can offset by importing food from other parts of the world. But bottom line is this winter, people are going to be paying a hell of a lot for their turkeys and whatnot. It's not going to be so cheap. That's going to start causing awareness. We're going to start having more increasing. This is all what you see happening now is going to keep building, but it could also come in fits and starts, because remember, it's about celestial alignment and how things are interacting. So we could have a period of real heavy problem, and then it could lighten up for a few months, and then pow, come back. But at this point, we are past the point of no return. And all that's going to be happening after this winter, if you haven't started doing your preparing and getting things, you're going to find you'll be competing with other people who are, and you're going to have less choice, and your money's not going to go anywhere near as far as it will go right now. And so people are going to wait until what do they got? And then, and as far as it goes for a book, trying to help people, that's the whole point of writing the book, to give them information that can help them. But, if your life is not worth the price of a book, why are we talking?
Very well said.
I mean, you have to buy the book. If your life isn't worth the price of a book, why are we talking? Go to McDonald's and have a candlelight dinner. Enjoy yourself, And that's the big thing, is folks need to do preparedness. And sitting on YouTube for 3 hours a day watching fear porn is not constructive. It's mental masturbation. That's it. Don't fool yourself into thinking, oh, I spent 3 hours today looking at crap on YouTube. Oh my God, I'm so prepared. If you told me you spent 3 hours on YouTube looking at weapons reviews, how to make a smokeless fire, how to build things, so what do you want to watch on YouTube? If you want to watch the fear porn and mentally masturbate, well, just be honest about it. You got to see, the whole point of it is that survival is less about the having of things and more about the knowing of things. That's what people have to understand. And you have to start disciplining yourself to learn. And if you can't discipline yourself to learn how to survive, odds are you're not. And it's as easy as that.
Very well said. And that, I think, is a good note to end on. Marshall, I want to thank you so much again for coming on tonight. And hopefully we will be able to have you back on again in the near future, if everything is still around, the internet and everything like that. So thanks again for coming on, and you have a great rest of your night.
You too, Chris. Been great, as always.